Hi everybody, welcome to Chapter 12 in our Glickman, Gordon, and Ross-Gordon text. We've looked at now observation tools, walkthrough tools. Now we're going to focus on some of the more professional development and theory associated with helping adult learners with professional development. This is going to go over the planning and preparation behind teacher observation. Some of you know that in your districts you might not do a full walkthrough, a full teacher conferencing observation, but the point of this class is really to go over what that looks like and what you should expect that to be. This book is a theory book, and I've said this over and over again. I want you to remember that when I'm talking about this book, I'm really talking about the theory that's involved with all of these things more than anything else. I don't want you to think of this more as a practitioner book, because it's not. This is really stuff that can help you understand why we do observation and why we do supervision. But if you're interested in this as a potential research project or research topic, I think this is great, and I think it's worth it for you to look at this, because it could be something that could help you with future research, and it's a great starting point. So for those of you that are thinking of a dissertation and you're potentially thinking of doing these types of topics, things related to supervision, evaluation, and assessment, I would strongly encourage you not to get rid of the textbook for this class. I think this is a textbook that's going to help you in the long run. So one of the most important things to keep in mind for supervision is that if you do it the way that you're supposed to do, which is what I hope you all do, this can take up a ton of your time in the day. And that's one of the biggest challenges and one of the biggest problems with supervision, because it impacts such a significant amount of your day. So knowing that, you have to plan for observations before you're actually doing them, and you have to make the teacher feel like their observation matters. You're visiting their classroom. You're giving them your time to observe. And while you have 40 other teachers to do it, it is a major event in their semester or in their year that it might not be for you. They get nervous. They get scared when you're coming in to observe them. So the best thing that you can do is at least show them respect and show them that it's something that you care about as well and that you're taking seriously. So what you need to do is keep a calendar. Our textbook says that a principal should spend 33% of the day meetings with faculty. How many principals do you know actually do that? If you know a lot, that's awesome, but I don't know many principals that actually spend 33% of their days meeting with faculty. If you could, I think that's great. So one of the things that they suggest is, in order for that to happen, we need to change our time allocations. Time sample studies, you heard me talk about Jim Spallon, he's the man with that. So anytime we hear time sample studies, remember the stuff that Jim Spallon did, because those are big ideas, and that's really what you're going to see in relation to what a time sample study looks like. 1 second, I want to go back so I can zoom in a little bit more. There's going to be, some of the stuff's going to be a tad difficult to read, so I want to make sure that I have this fully focused for you. Bear with me. I think that's as close as I can get it and as good as it's going to go. So as I always say, please make sure you follow along in your PowerPoints. So we're going to talk about ways that we can look at what a principal does to reduce paperwork, email meetings, and classroom visits. Try to think right now how much time you spend on each of these. Could your time be spent better elsewhere? Could it? Should it? Can it? So paperwork, it's mechanical. If you're in leadership theory right now, you know paperwork is a technical, mechanical skill. Smart administrators delegate it appropriately. They give it to their assistant principals and their administrative assistants. I suggest you dedicate after-hours times to paperwork when the faculty is not in the building. Me, myself, right now I'm recording this late at night because I do all my work late at night. When I was an administrator, I despised being there early in the morning. The person I worked with got there at 5 a.m. I hated it. I got there right at the beginning of the day, took care of anything that I needed to in the morning, watched the kids get off the bus, and then I stayed later at night. And I did my paperwork later at night. And I thought that was a smart way to do it. I didn't let it impact my day. To me, that was a big idea. So what should you do with email? Try to find a way to process email, decide how to respond to it, commit to it, determine whether you do it immediately, whether or not you wait till one time later in the day. This is difficult to decide. I mean, I have different systems. You might have different systems. For me, I like to check and respond to email as soon as I get it. That way it's off my plate. If I know there's something giant coming up, I'll normally wait on it. The issue that I run into is if I respond to email immediately, people expect that I will email them back immediately. That is a problem. I don't want people to email me back immediately. I'm trying my best to avoid that from happening. So what to do with meetings? If meetings can be scheduled with auxiliary staff or after school hours, that's the best thing that you can possibly have. If you have the opportunity to save time, increase it with your faculty and students who are the ones that should be getting the most of your time in the first place. I believe that parents can be met better at the beginning of the day than at the end of the day. If the angry parent comes and screams at you at the end of the school day, that can be a bad thing. If you wait until the next day, parents get time to cool off, and then you have more time to answer and alleviate their concerns. So classroom visits, in theory, the majority of your time should be classroom visits. Commit to 1 to 2 full periods a day when you're physically in classroom. Schedule visits in advance, but say, no matter what happens, 1 to 2 periods a day, I will be in classrooms. Jim Spillane, as you've heard me mention in here multiple times, he is the time sampling guy. Jim Spillane is one of the most distinguished professors in all of education. He's an organizational theorist. He looks at schools as organizations, but he sees how structure helps improve or hurt school reform. If you want large-scale reform, he's a good person to look at. The main thing that he's known for is this idea of time sampling. Most researchers have 2 tracks and 2 trajectories that they do. I like finance, I like organizational theory, and succession planning relates to both of them. Spillane's is time sampling. His work on time sampling is fascinating, and what he does, it's worth a look if you're interested in actions that administrators take. So what he does is this. Him and a team of researchers give administrators beepers. Then they beep them. Then they text back to Spillane what they're doing for the day. The principals either text back or they update it in a journal. I think this is awesome. If you were studying what principals do, this would be a qualitative study, but Spillane did this quantitatively because they could actually write out how many times principals did and what behaviors they engaged in. I think that's huge. So, assessing and planning within the organization, authors suggest the following things. They suggest you decide your objective, determine the activities, identify resources, and evaluate whether the plan was successful. So, as we normally do, we'll chat about each one of these and what they're supposed to mean. Specifically, I really want to focus on assessing need, because I think that's one of the biggest ideas when you're actually looking at organizational planning. So, there are 9 different ways to consider assessing need in an organization. As we normally do, we'll talk about each one. So, eyes and ears. Talk to teachers, administrators, aides, custodians, secretaries, anybody who works with a task. Ask them what they need to complete the task. What can you do to help them? And if they can help you, ask them to help you. If you listen to their opinions, you can find ways to work your schedule in so that you're observing them at certain times, or you're working with them at certain times, and it benefits everybody. Observations have to be purposeful, and I can't say this enough. When you are observing somebody, there has to be a reason that you're in that classroom. If you waste your time and you're just there sitting and hanging out, nothing gets accomplished, nothing gets done. You have to have a systematic observation. I am here to see how student B responds in class, how they interact with their peers. I'm here to see how the teacher uses student engagement. I'm here to see if the teacher will teach all 5 of the objectives that I'm going to present on the board today. Observations have to be systematic, and they have to have a purpose. Any documents have to be used that you're giving if they support the task under consideration. If you observe a teacher with a specific form, in a unionized state, you need to show them that form. So understand what the purpose of the task is and fit documents along those tasks. That's the Sullivan Chapter 3 that we've talked about. That's a big idea. So reviewing teacher and student work products, Principals can review teacher and student work products to assess need. They can get a good picture of what needs to get done. The main product that a teacher gives is their daily lesson plan. That lets you know what is supposed to be going on in the classroom, and you can trust teachers as professionals as to what is going on in the classroom. But if you have a work-based portfolio, you can show the activities throughout the year, but remembering, assessing a work-based portfolio is incredibly time-consuming. So you can also do a third-party review. I love a third-party review. If you have an outside person look at what you're doing in time management, that can tell you whether or not you're being effective. I don't think it should be somebody in the organization. If you had somebody outside the organization give you suggestions on how to manage your time, this is going to make you a better and a more effective principal, I promise. And it'll make sure that you know if you're staying on task. So the other thing that you can do is send out surveys. If you send out a survey with a specific need or want, and you very rarely do it, your teachers and your parents will respond to it. If you do them all the time, it loses fidelity and it loses effectiveness. So only do the strategy when it's the most important. So only send out the surveys when it's the most important. Ranked lists are research techniques that are known as Q sorts. I do Q sorts in my research. I like people to basically put in order what they're supposed to be doing, and then present it as to what should be 1, 2, 3, and 4. What are your priorities? It's important that you see that teachers or peers might have different priorities than you do, and then you can at least assess where you're spending your time. I skipped over this one with the, well, you know what? I just didn't say the open-ended part of it. Let me stress this. Open-ended surveys. If you're writing an open-ended survey, that's a little bit different because then you're asking them to give you qualitative feedback. They're not just checking in a box. That's a big idea and that's a big deal as well. So next we have the Delphi Technique. This is a basic idea of ranking in open-ended surveys. You give them a rank list, but then you also give them an opportunity to tell you why they put the priorities there. This is a lot of work. I did one research study that was a Delphi technique, and I asked people to tell me why they ranked something first, why they ranked something second, and it was interesting. Only consider doing this if you have a looming decision that needs to be made and prioritized. And that way, if you have to understand what the teachers feel, that's a better way to do it. The Delphi technique is almost the same as the nominal group technique, except you're putting it in small groups. I like this in terms of professional learning communities, which you'll learn about more in one of the doctoral classes. And we've briefly mentioned this in here, and we've talked about it in leadership theory. But it's putting people in grade level or subject area, and then having them rank their priorities and tell you why. That way you know if they extend across different areas, and I think that's a big idea as well. So diagramming is at the last part of the chapter. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to put them on the board and I'm going to talk about each one so that we can get a clear perspective on them, and you can decide whether or not this is something that you would want to use in your organization. So cause and effect diagram. This one would show you, the notion between planning, quality, support, and evaluation. What seems to be the problem? If we do this, we could have this potentially go wrong. And it just basically, you would use a cause and effect diagram to take some of these ideas and see how one influences the other. Needs analysis flowchart. This can tell you basically what you do in a certain situation. For a new assistant principal, I think this is an awesome idea. Student sent to the office for misbehavior, if the principal's in the office, yes. Then the secretary gets a note from the teacher. Student doesn't have a note, they send it back to the classroom. Principal's in the office, no. Student sent back to the principal already. So that would be what would happen if a student got sent for misbehavior. If there's nobody that can control and help it, well then that's a problem. So then next we have the Parental Chart, and I apologize if this doesn't show up well. This is why you have the PowerPoints up as you're looking at it. This is showing primary reasons for dropping out of school, but it's taking them and it's adding on to them. It's saying that 36% of dropouts were drug and alcohol abuse. 58% was family problems. So then we add 22% from 36 to 58, because 22% was family. So 36 plus 22 is 58. So we can say 58% of our students dropped out because of drug and alcohol abuse or family problems. So a Parental Chart is basically a graph that has built in different elements and different levels on it. So the Affinity Diagram is is pretty cool. This is basically taking each one of the big ideas and breaking them down and saying, well, in this category, we're looking at this. In this in health and fitness, we're looking at wellness, physical fitness. In cognitive development, we want problem solving and critical thinking skills. We're taking all of these ideas and we're looking at them. And I think that's important, and I think it's a big idea. The impact analysis chart, you'll see a lot of these at strategic planning lessons and levels, because you're taking what something can do, who it impacts students, the content, teachers, and the instruction, and what happens. Impact analysis charts are big for school superintendents because they like taking these, passing them out and saying, by making this one change, I've impacted this person, this group, these people, this method, and this is what it looks like. So I've seen impact analysis done quite frequently. A Gantt chart, if we were doing a management class, I love the idea of a Gantt chart. A Gantt chart is a scheduling chart. It tells you between the start of the school year and the end of the school year when something is going to get accomplished. Between August, September, and October, we're going to do initial pre-conferences, then we're going to do the observations in November. Then in December, you're going to have a post-conference. Then in January, we'll repeat the cycle again. But a Gantt chart lets you know what's going to happen and when it's going to happen. So those are planning ideas. These are suggestions that can help you fit things to your day and make it more effective. One of the things that you want to do is really look at how time-consuming being a principal is and where you can cut time. If you plan appropriately, your job could go better. The next chapter is Glickman's approach to supervision. I'm skipping it. I'm going to be moving on when we get back to Glickman for more assessment and professional development, because the stuff that you need related to that, I really think you got and you'll receive in the Sullivan text. So, hope you enjoyed this lesson. Let me know if there's anything else I can do to help. Thank you.